Discipline is super important. Obviously, we definitely need discipline to do our things and to reach our goals. But if you could be motivated, if you could just be motivated to do everything you had to do, at every point in the day, you were always motivated, that'd be great. We can all agree it would be awesome to be motivated at least more of the time than we currently are. It would make things much more pleasurable, much more, fulfilling in the moment, much easier to do it in the long term. That would be great. So, how do we do that? The main things that you know, that affect this are your dopamine. This is a neurotransmitter, which you probably know. Most like, you know, schools and stuff will tell you about dopamine, but it's basically, I'm just gonna do like a little quick crash course. So basically, you have a baseline dopamine, which can be thought of as your like baseline motivation, your baseline pleasure, and in some ways your baseline happiness, just sort of how you feel, how motivated you are in general. People have this. There's certain genetic variation in this. There's some people that have a higher one, some people have a lower one, and you know it's gonna be like that. You get what you get. Then there's dopamine spikes. This is separate from the baseline, but it can kind of be intertwined a little bit. So there's dopamine spikes, like this, and there's dopamine troughs. Once you spike dopamine, you get a trough afterwards. That is non-negotiable. If you pursue something that gives you pleasure, you get the spike, you get a trough. That's it. That's how it works. There's no getting around it. So now that we understand a little bit about dopamine and the mechanisms behind it, the neuro like crash course neurobiology. I'm by no means a neurobiologist, but so it's enough to understand it basically. Then, realistically, we would want to increase this baseline. The first thing is that every time you spike the dopamine and you get a trough, the baseline goes down. Meaning, every time um, you know, you watch porn, you get a spike and a trough, and the baseline goes down. Every time you eat junk food, baseline goes up, or dopamine goes up, get a trough, baseline goes down. This projected over, the course of many days, many weeks, many months, your entire life, the baseline could be very lowered. This is what happens in addiction. A cocaine addict, gets the cocaine spike, the trough, baseline goes down, and they try to get the same spike, but they can never reach it, and it's like sad, obviously, but that's how it works on a micro scale. And this, in my opinion, is why there's so much depression. Why, like if you look at the statistics for like happiness, especially in teens and college students and people like that, it's like it's actually saddening. It's crazy. The data just speaks for itself. If you want to look it up, I'm sure you've seen it before. So now we're on the minority of the insiders who actually understand this and are able to leverage it for their goals. So, boom, you got like the golden ticket, the key, basically, because this is the key. Okay, how do we. The first thing we want to do is stop some of these spikes, the ones that are just pointless pleasure, because we understand their pointless pleasure and we understand the consequences in the long term. So, go through your life, go through your habits. It might be hard to do this as you have to break the addiction, obviously. I'll make videos about that in the future. But mainly, you go through your life. You say, okay, TikTok is pretty much pointless pleasure. Porn is pretty much pointless pleasure. Let's see, junk food is pointless pleasure. Great. Those are gone. Those have now been eliminated. Boom. Your baseline will go up after a certain amount of time of not engaging in these activities. Excuse me. Great. So we have that. We've gone through our life. We've taken out the bad things, the bad habits, the things you think of, which you intuitively know, which without me telling you, the things oh, I should stop doing this because this is bad. That's why. Boom. The next thing is, how do we increase this baseline? This is how you get pretty much like motivation forever, or at least very heightened motivation, which can be the key to success versus not success. Because if you're motivated, it's much easier. not neglecting discipline, because you definitely need discipline. Even if you're motivated, there's still going to be times when you don't necessarily want to do it. You still basically just have to do it anyways, is what it is. How do we do this? So, there's about 4 things that increase this dopamine baseline. First one is sleep. So, the neurotransmitters and just basically sleep just fixes almost everything, including the chemicals in your brain, and it also is when dopamine is produced, like, and a lot of these chemicals are produced is when you're sleeping, when you have the time to recharge. So it's super important to do that. You should be sleeping at least 9 to 10 hours per night. At least that time should be spent in bed or trying to go to sleep, so like that. It's kind of cool because a lot of these things sort of like spiral, and they're all like a positive momentum. Once you start sleeping more, that increases your testosterone, which increases your dopamine, which increases your motivation, which increases your likelihood of going to the gym and your likelihood of doing the good habits. So every like step in the right direction spirals, I guess. Next thing is your diet. So dopamine is made from L-tyrosine, I believe, which is found in foods like salmon, steak, eggs, things like that. The practical step for this is eat more foods high in L-tyrosine, but realistically, if you're going to take one thing from this section with it, which is like the meal section or like the diet section, eat eggs. Eggs are high in tyrosine. Eggs have a great amino acid profile, So just eat whatever 3, 4, 5 eggs every morning. You can make like egg on toast, egg tacos, an omelet, fried eggs, whatever you like. That would be my suggestion. That's what I do. Okay, so we have sleep, we have diet. Next one, I could go into like cold or, yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so, cold immersion or cold exposure. This one is super, super important. Basically, when you experience pain, meaning it's like basically the opposite of pleasure, like the trough, when you experience this it has to be very particular, but not from the like afterwards thing, it has to be from like deliberate cold exposure or like deliberate painful stimulus. The useful one is cold exposure. Obviously, don't go around like injuring yourself or something like that to try to get this. The safe way to do it is from cold exposure. You can also do it from, effort or hard exercise or things like that. Easiest one is you wake up and you take a cold shower first thing in the morning. This builds your discipline, which is a good thing. It also has this effect, which I'm going to talk about. Basically, when you do this painful stimulus, then your baseline rises. And this is not one of those like acute spikes in the trough. It's like an actual rise. And it stays elevated for sometimes up to 5 to 6 hours. Hours of like a 2.5 times dopamine baseline increase. Like, just let that sink in. That's kind of insane. That's like insane. So the thing you do for this is just do 30 seconds to 2 minutes of just cold water exposure. Easiest one is a cold shower. If you have an ice bath for some reason, that's probably fine. I don't think most people have that, but just, yeah. Instead, when you wash your face in the morning, just go in the shower and wash your face in cold water instead, and boom, easy. The next one, okay, so we have, it's pretty like simple, I guess, but it's just knowing all this so you can implement it is very important. The next one is yoga nidra. I haven't really done this before, but if you follow along on this like meditative thing, it's like NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, that will also increase your baseline. So it's just another one of those things. That's helpful. Yeah, I don't know. The one I was really thinking of, to be honest, was morning sunlight. Morning sunlight's probably the like bonus one, I guess. Morning sunlight is basically just viewing morning sunlight as the name implies, meaning a low solar angle coming from, fuck, I always forget this shit. Eastward. We got it, eastward. Early in the morning for about 5 to 10 minutes. Pretty much spikes your cortisol, which is a good thing in the beginning of the day, increases your dopamine, helps you sleep, you know, again, this whole like positive momentum thing. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. If you want my mindset, if you want any help with your addictions, any issues you're struggling with, I know you can't really like talk about these issues that you have like with kind of just the normal people in your day-to-day life or people who aren't on this like self-improvement journey. So yeah, if you need any help with that, coaching down below. Have a good one. Peace.